I was talking about positive numbers, and the headline earnings were the ones that were up by 7%, but headline earnings per share down 7%. I think that's the number that investors focus on. What happened? You were talking a lot about supply constraints that happened from your suppliers and how that affected some of your operations. The rand strength also affecting your operations, competition. I do want to start with that competition side of it.
Yes, look, in the local market, we have experienced quite a turnaround and a volatile impact of competition. Most of our competition is from offshore, from Chinese products that come into South Africa when the macroeconomics are suitable, and that was definitely the case in the first half of the year. However, the Chinese aluminium price and the rand dollar turned around in the second half, and all of a sudden it was not so attractive to import in the second half. So that these, without duty protection in place, the South African market is quite vulnerable to a flood of imports and then a flood out of importers. So that's really what we experienced in 2011.
One of the things you said was it's disappointing that import duties remain at 5% on extruded products and 0% on rolled products. What would you rather see in that space?
Yeah, look, you know, Hannah, South Africa is one of very few countries, certainly within the emerging market space, that has no or little duty protection, certainly on rolled products, no protection. And when there's one house in the street that has no burglar guards and no alarm, that's where the bad guys are going to hit. So South Africa is vulnerable, and what the situation does is that it makes the situation volatile for local manufacturers and producers. So one minute the imports are flooding in, the next minute they're flooding out. And that's what we've seen in 2011.
Another thing that seemed to impact your earnings was that rand strength. I want to talk a little bit about that. And one of the things that you do on aluminium products, we did see this volatility in the price there, and your company does hedge. To what extent do you think the level that you're hedging at is sufficient?
Yeah, look, we are a major exporter of aluminium products. Only about a third of our production is sold in South Africa. So the prices that we get are in US dollars, and the costs that we incur are largely in rands. So when the rand prices increase at South African inflation and the rand dollar doesn't compensate us for that, you get this mismatch. The rand certainly was strong in the first half of 2011, but obviously the weakness in the second half did help us quite a lot. We also have a kind of a one-off hedge impact, as you mentioned, where the value of our metal pool does change over time, and our results in 2011 were quite negatively affected to the tune of 80 million rand at operating profit level by a sharp fall off in the underlying aluminium price.
I want to talk a little bit about your international market, because you were talking about that being a significant number of where your earnings are coming from. We have seen this euro issue that has impacted, and you also say that in your report, Eurozone crisis there. But then you're seeing opportunities in other parts of the world. The US seeming to have a little bit of recovery, not as much as we would like to see, but some recovery there. Going forward, where do you think you're probably going to be spending a lot of time on capitalizing?
Yeah, look, we exposed about 40% of our sales go to the US and Europe. Also, indirectly, we're affected by the European sovereign debt crisis. Our local sales, particularly in the automotive sector, where some of the customers that we have in South Africa are component manufacturers who supply into Europe, they were also negatively affected in this last 6 to 9 month period. However, Hulamin is particularly well diversified geographically. We have about 20% of our sales that are in South America, the Middle East, and in China and Asia. So we have a balanced portfolio of sales, and we certainly would like our local sales to be bigger, and we are putting quite a lot of effort, as we have done for years, on growing our local sales.
When you talk about the local sector, one of the sectors that you seem to focus a lot on is construction. We have seen that sector coming under a lot of pressure going forward. Do you think that it could improve, particularly with the government making so much promise in improving infrastructure in the country?
Yes, construction is a major exposure of Hulamin, particularly in our extrusion business, where about 50 to 60% of our sales are directly into construction. Where we are quite optimistic is that we've seen both the level of tender activity increasing in the last 2 to 3 months, and certainly in our extrusion business we've seen our order book filling up a little bit. Where we're also quite excited is that There's quite a lot of aluminium exposure in these solar farms that the government's announced tender processes starting, which they announced in December last year. And we certainly are a little bit more optimistic about the future than we were 12 months ago.
You talk about that energy efficient envelopes, particularly for buildings. How much opportunity is there for your company?
Very significant. You know, aluminium is a particularly durable metal. So you can put it out there on your roof, you can make your gutters out of it, and it probably will last longer than you or I will. Unlike other materials that tend to degrade over time. At the same time, it's a very good conductor of heat and electricity. So it's a really amazing product, which is well suited to the building and construction industry.
In terms of pace, we keep hearing about this energy efficiency and the urgency for not only residents but also for business to move towards that. When it comes to the pace here in South Africa, do you think the pace is moving as you would like it to in terms of using your products like you're saying and being able to move faster than we are moving right now when it comes to conserving energy?
Yeah, look, conserving energy in South Africa is quite a complicated scenario. In the past, we've had very cheap electricity relative to our international competitors. So when business people like I do calculate the payback of energy saving projects, historically they've looked unattractive. That is changing very dramatic. As we all know, these 25% plus increases in electricity are very serious, and we've already seen, and Hulamin ourselves are looking at a number of energy saving projects specifically now because they have a much more attractive payback. So the economics are starting to look more in favor of energy saving than they have in the past. At the same time, all responsible businesses need to look at energy and energy consumption, because this is a problem that's not going to go away. It's going to compound, and it's going to get more serious over the years.
I want to talk about the closure of your Cape Town plant, the extrusion plant that happened there. What caused it? Because I was trying to find out what the reasons were for that and what caused it, and would you be seeing further closures in different plants across the country?
Yeah, look, all businesses have to keep looking at efficiencies, opportunities to save costs and ensure our economic sustainability. Where we were in our extrusion business is that we had a situation where we had a lot of excess capacity in that business. We had a plant in Cape Town with its overheads, we have a plant in Midrand, and we also have a plant in Pietermaritzburg. And with the downturn in the local market, with the flood of imports, we found that all three of our plants have been underutilized. And unfortunately, it's just a difficult situation where we could no longer afford to keep that overcapacity operational. What we've done is we've closed the plant, we've mothballed the asset, we've moved the extrusion press up to Johannesburg, and when the demand returns, we will then recommission that asset in Midrand.
Richard, I want to quickly ask you, going forward, I mean, we do see a lot of issues still happening, the Eurozone crisis continuing right now, our own local demand not seeming to be too much better than it was last year. What is your focus going to be, and do you think your numbers are going to be better in the next financial year?
Yeah, look, Hulamin is in a fortunate position in that we've got a lot of opportunities internally to improve our efficiencies, to improve our cost effectiveness, to improve our capacity utilization, and we certainly need to be a world-class business going forward that is as good as any aluminium rolling mill and aluminium extrusion business anywhere in the world, and that's our objective, our primary objective going forward.
Thank you so much, Richard. That was Richard Jacobs, CEO of Hulamin.